Welcome to another Tech Hour session. My name is Lina. I'm a Creatio Academy trainer, and I'm happy to present to you Jovka, another trainer from our academy. Hi, Jovka.
Hello everyone. Welcome to our Tech Hour.
So the topic of today's Tech Hour is going to be webhooks. It's a callback function that allows lightweight, event-based driven communication between different services. So it's an integration uh, topic for us today. And what we're going to be showing is basically how to work with webhooks when there is already a connector built in. So that's going to be one example. The second example is going to be a slightly modified version of that, basically when there's a little bit less. It's a connector, it's still there, but it has less things preset in it, so you'll have to figure out how to do those small setups. And the last one is going to be an example that is fully without a connector, but it's going to show you the power of webhooks and that you can now use them to communicate with Creatio, to send information into Creatio without having to build a very complex connector if the service basically allows for that. So the first example is going to be Landingi, the service that we have a fully built connector with, where you can integrate landing pages with Creatio. The second example will be shown by Jovka.
Yes, and our second example will be the connector that we have in WordPress. And I will show you the steps and how to create forms from WordPress into Creatio.
Perfect. Really looking forward to that. And the third one is Microsoft Forms. That's basically an example where there is no connector, but there is an option of sending a webhook using Power Automate service. And basically, I'm going to show you that when you receive some sort of feedback, or again, you have a form that you fill out and you want the data from that form to go back into Creatio without having to retype it manually. Obviously, that's the idea every time. So let's start with the first one, and that's going to be Landingi. Okay, so the first topic that we are going to start with is going to be utilizing the existing connector with Creatio that already is there, and learning how to utilize it, because those skills will become important later on when we're trying to set up something on our own, perhaps where there is no direct connector. So my example for today will be to show you how to use Landingi service. There is already a direct connector with Creatio. So I have this little page that I have pre-built. So here it is in the editor. And what we're going to do is learn how to connect the form on this page to Creatio. So landing pages can be used for a variety of things, from event registrations to lead generation to even support use cases like, for example, registering new cases in Creatio. The example that we will be looking on today will be, again, related to getting more people into our system, getting the contact information. It's going to be an event. I'll show you an example where if you want to connect with Creatio and be able to create a new contact or verify um, basically connected to an existing contact, what object we use, but we are not limited to just those objects. We can technically connect with any objects in Creatio using this webhook technology. So let's get started. The first thing that we are going to do, we are going to go into Creatio and get some information to use this connector with. So I'm going to go into the contact section, and let me first switch to my marketing workplace. In this workplace, I already have my section for webhooks. Okay, and the thing is, you can go into really any section that's a Freedom UI section. You will normally have this import and option to import from web forms and pages. And what it's going to give us is the API key to work with. So As you can see, the first one is Landingi, the second one, WordPress. My colleague Jovka will talk about next. What I need here, since I already have the account with Landingi, I just need the API key. So the API key has been copied. After that, I'm opening my editor. I'm opening the editor of the form. My form, as I said, is very simple. Just have it has a name and email. Here, let's go to settings. First, enter your email. Let's change this text here. But what I really do need is click on the integrations tab, click on Creatio, and select, you're not going to have the word prod here. This is for just our internal account with Landingi. You will have the Webhooks Creatio service URL here, and you just need to enter the key. After that, the application gets authorized. You need to wait a little bit until it does that. You will see a message in green that we have logged in. As you can see, here it is. And you select the object that you want to connect to. Basically, this information is supposed to be sent. So you can create new records in any of the objects. Right now, I have 4 in the list. I'll show you how to expand that. Like, we are not limited to just these 4. For marketing purposes, we're mostly using contacts, leads, and form submit. So one of the objects that I would recommend, if your purpose is marketing or any sort of marketing related activities, form submit is one of the best objects to work with for that matter, just because it already has pre-built logic in the system, business processes that ensure that if you create a new webhook and it creates a new record in form submit object, which is not really kind of like visible from the user interface. What it does, it basically searches for a contact, and if there's said contact is already there, it matches to that contact, and if not, it basically creates a new one. Previously, with form submit, or not previously, with standard landing section, that's the data where basically that's where data goes. If you use the classic UI Creatio landings and form pages sections, basically that's the object that it essentially worked with. So I'm going to create form submit today. I'm going to select that, and then you need to do the mapping. I already kind of tested this myself, so that's why for me it's pre-selected, but again, you can manually choose these fields, email, or for any object, again, that you're using, you will be able to work with that. If you have any, and so for me, my form is very simple, full name, email. Let's click save. Technically, I can start testing right now. The only thing I would like to address, for example, if you would add an element that is a drop-down list, what you will need to do is insert your option and value. So what does it mean from Creatio standpoint, option and label? So this is the name of your lookup, the value that the user sees. So let me quickly put this in. Name, right? The value of the lookup that the user is familiar with. And this is the ID of that said value. So what you need to do is, if you're mapping lookups, which can be done, it's fairly easy to do, you will need to do 2 things. Put in the text that user selects. In the second option, in the value, put in the value of the ID. You can get it from Creatio by going into the lookup sections and finding the value for that ID. I will show you that in my other example later on. So let's save this. Oh, I don't need the third option. Let me quickly remove this. This was just for the demo. So here's my form. Let me quickly publish this. Publish anyway. This is a test form, so I don't require a custom domain or anything. So it's publishing. And what I'm going to do here is my landing page link. I'm going to open it. And actually, let me use another name. Anna Smith, just because, again, I already used that name before for testing, and I'm clicking save. So that's my trigger for the Landingi to send the webhook into the system. Let's go back into Creatio. So in the marketing, I already added, as you can see, my webhook has been received. I can open it. And once the webhook was received, you can see what the body of the webhook was. Here it is. So all the data coming in. The reason I'm pointing this out, in a later example that I will be showing, we will see that not every service that is capable of sending a webhook will send it in the format that Creatio understands. And this is very important. So Landingi is a very great example of understanding what the format that we're expecting to be. So if you ever have to work with a service that can send a webhook, but does so in a slightly different format, it doesn't look exactly like this. I'm assuming by this time my webhook has been processed. Let's refresh, see, done. And what I can do is go into the contact section and check if my contact, Anna Smith, has indeed been created. As you can see, Anna Smith with the email is here. So my page is very simple. The only thing it does, it kind of like results in the creation of a contact, but you can use it for lead registration, connecting to the lead section, and so on. So let me quickly show you where you would do this if you needed to expand the list of available objects that the webhook can work with. So let's go into the lookup section. And so the object, the lookup for it is called webhook entities, open content, and you can add any object in here really. So it's not this small list that you're having here. Technically, this list is not just webhook entities. This list is for Landingi to appear in that drop down on Landingi, because really, when Creatio receives this webhook, it can process any webhook. So it's not limited to just this list, which I'll show you that I will not be adding in my next example. I will not be adding my object here, but I'll still be capable of receiving the webhook. Okay, so that was my first example. As you can see, it's very, very simple to work with already pre-existing connector. Simply just enter the API key, map the fields, figure out which object you want to receive the data in, which is basically going to be creating a new record in, and and you can work from there. So Yovka, please now present how to work with a little bit more complicated connector, which is still a connector, but to WordPress.
Thank you, Lina, for the information on how to use Landingi. And now I will show you how to connect a WordPress form to Creatio. Now, starting from our 8.1 release, we have an instruction with the main steps on how to connect WordPress with Creatio. And today I will walk you through the steps and I will show you how to receive WordPress webhooks into Creatio. Now, the instructions that you can see here on my screen, they can be found in any Freedom UI section in Creatio. For example, if you open Contacts, under Import, you have this option, Web Forms and Pages. And here you can find a short instruction how to connect your WordPress landings with Creatio. First, you can see a short overview about the platform. In our case, that would be a WordPress. So what's WordPress and so on. And on this page as well, you can generate your webhook URL. Here, this you can see on step 5. So that would be a unique webhook just for your Creatio environment. And you can copy the webhook URL and use it on your WordPress site. Now, right, and when someone fill in the form on your landing page, WordPress will send webhooks to this URL. And when our system get the webhook, it creates a record in the targeted section. And the section where you can check the webhooks, it's called Webhooks, and I will show it to you a bit later. Now let's start with the steps. Now, in the beginning, you have to, of course, log into your WordPress account. You need to make sure that you have installed this Elementor. And I already have it, and I have a very basic form page. And the first thing that we need on our page, that would be the element called form. And so we need this element called form. So I will drag and drop it into my form. And first, we need to select our action after submit. So what do we want to happen after a person submit the form? Now you can see that these two fields are filled with some values by default. I'm just going to delete them because they are not important for me at that moment. And I need to add a webhook. This is my action that I'm interested in, webhook. And in the below panel, you can see webhook. So if I expand this panel, here is where I need to add my URL. So where do you get this URL? It's from the web forms and pages page. And here on step 5, I have an option to click and get my webhook URL. So I just click and I can see that now this is my uniquely generated URL. I just copy it and paste it into my webhook URL here. Next, we need to specify the Creatio object into which we want to create the record. That can be a contact, a lead, submitted form, etc. By default, Creatio lets you add any object based on the webhook. Now, to do this, you need to add a new hidden field to your form. Right, so let's do this. Form fields, I'm going to remove the ones that I will not need. I will add a new one, and that would be type should be hidden. The label, so the label, this is a required parameter, and here I'm going to put entity name. Now I switch to advanced, and in the default value, here is where you add the code of the Creatio object. Right, so do you want to import forms, contacts, leads, etc. In my case, I will use form submit. And in my next step, I need to configure my form fields, right? So to map the webhook form parameters to Creatio object fields, we need to select the needed fields. And you need to make sure that the values match the field codes of the Creatio object. Right, so if I go to name, type is text, and label, the field label, this is the code of the object. Right, so in our case, that would be full name. Right, this is my code from Creatio. Now you can see that now the label is shown here on the form, so I will just hide the labels. And I will add some placeholder. Enter your full name. Now in my form, I will add very basic fields, full name, email, and phone. So my next field, that would be email. And here, actually, I don't need to configure anything. So the type is email, the label, it matches the one from Creatio, and that is email. And I will add one more for phone. And so I can switch to number, and the label, that would be the phone number, and the placeholder, enter your phone number. Now I'm ready to save my changes. I have now very basic form, but I have all the fields that I need. And here I already have the link of the preview of my page, right? So I have the form, email, and the phone. Now let me fill this. Let me fill the form. And if I click send, what will happen now in Creatio? We need to go to our section webhooks. And what we see that now we have a new entry with status new. We can see the source, that was webhook source is WordPress. And if I open the record, I can see a bit more information about the webhook. And now we need to wait a bit until the webhook is processed and the status change to done. Right, so if I refresh one more time, it will take a bit of time to process. And after everything flows correctly and the status is done, you can be sure that your record is created to whatever object you filled. Like either new lead will be generated or a new contact will be created, and so on. Right, now you can see that I refreshed and my status is now done. So there were no errors and everything is flowing correctly. Now I want to show you one more thing, and I will quickly show you another update in our marketing campaign. We have a new element. We have a new element called Add from Web Page. It enables adding campaign participants automatically from landing pages via webhooks. And this element is triggered when a user submits a web form on the landing page. And here I have one example campaign. And I used this new element. And you can see it here. It's called Add from Web Page. Here I have my audience object, that submitted form, and the only thing that I need to do here is to paste my landing page URL. Right, so I have submitted form, the landing page, and now everyone who goes and who send and fill this form and send it, I can use it to get the audience. And for example, I can create a landing page for an event, and I can add, I can later use this for my campaigns and get the audience for my event. Right, so this was a quick overview how we can use the webhooks and how we can connect WordPress to Creatio. Thank you. And now going back to Lina, that will show us the rest of the topics for this tech hour.
Yovka, thank you for the lovely demonstration of the connector to WordPress. And so our final topic for today will be connector with basically, well, there is no connector, basically how to work with webhooks when there is no connector. And really this method will differ for a variety of services. Obviously, this is not one solution fits all. So, but this solution I think is very beneficial to show just because a lot of companies are using Microsoft Forms, and you no longer need really any connectors to connect to Microsoft Forms, just because Microsoft itself can send a webhook to Creatio. It's not a no-code solution. I will tell you that myself. It is a little bit of the code solution, like a low code, which is very replicatable if you are a more technical person. So definitely, I'm not a developer in any shape or form. But after again going through this example multiple times, I can definitely say that I can replicate this for I think pretty much any form really at this point. So what we're going to be taking a look, I have this little form designed here, customer registration form. I decided to use some example that does not currently exist in Creatio out of the box. So I have created a section, customer registration form. And as you can see, I have a couple of things like full name, email, birthday, and source. So let's say I have a business where I get a lot of new customer or new business. It's not even the lead, but these registrations, maybe it's a student related business, right? So like we're getting those registrations, or perhaps again, any sort of high volume registrations that you want to be processing. So I have created a separate object for that to store the data from the webhook. And then basically what I would do later, after I integrate it with, after I show the integration, technically what I would do is figure out how I would match it to an existing contact. It's going to be a business process. When a new customer registration form is created, it will search for a contact in the database. So that will be kind of the next step to take for me in order to make this a more viable solution. But the purpose today is to basically learn how to integrate, not to build business processes. I'm assuming you know how to do this already. So let's start working on the form. So first thing, I have a text field, another text field, a date field, and an input. So I want to show you like different types of data that you can enter into it. So this is what it was going to look like from the customer's perspective, right? Enter your name, email, birthday, and so on. The service that we will need to utilize in order to make this work will be called Power Automate. And so this is from Microsoft. You do have to have a premium account subscription. So like if you don't have that, they give you a trial, at least at this point, at the point of recording, but it is a separate usually charge. So keep that in mind. But after that, you will have, I'm assuming you can have as many flows as you want. It could be one flow for multiple things, or you can change some things around. So let me show you that. So form itself is one thing, right? I have my form, Microsoft form. Now I need to set up a trigger that when a form is filled in, when I see a response on the form, I will be able to process this, change it into a webhook in the format that works for Creatio. Trust me, that part is very important and will require us to do a little bit kind of like of a low code, and then send it to Creatio. So let's do this test. I'm going to create a new flow, an automated cloud flow. Let's call this tech our demo. And my trigger is when a new response is submitted. So there are a bunch of triggers that you can use. So my personal one that I'm interested in is the form one. Create. Okay, the form is submitted. You first have to pick the form that you will be using. So customer registration form, customer registration form. After that, what you will need to do is process that response. So the next action that we're going to add for Microsoft Forms, we need to get response details. Get response details, again, from the same form, customer registration form. And here we're entering the dynamic data list of responses. Now, what the system does, because it's basically preset for the form. Oh, let me turn off this Copilot. So for each Since my response I could have multiple responses, I have to process them separately. So a list of responses, because again, list of responses means that there will be multiple responses. I will be processing one at a time, the most recent one in here. And so it creates this little loop for each response to be able to process. So get response details. And after that, I can add the action, which is going to call webhook here, HTTP webhook. So let me show you basically what we're going to do. The subscribe method for us is going to be to post these details into Creatio, right? Next thing that we're going to do is tell the system the URI, something that we basically didn't have to do before, right? With Landingi, it already knew the URL. This URL can be found on Creatio website, so I'm copy pasting it. Here it is, but after the last slash, you need to enter the API key. So in order for the Power Automate to log in into your demo instance, you need that API. So I'm going to go into my section. Again, Freedom UI sections do have this automatically. Copy the API key and insert it here. Now, this is where things get a little bit tricky, because by default, if I send the form like as is, it's not going to be a right body. Basically, it's going to send me just responses without the names of the columns. So this is where it's a little bit more complicated, because and I told you in my previous demo that you have to pay attention to the Landingi, I guess, example that you can get, because that's exactly the format that Creatio can deal with. And the format consists of the code of the column that you're inserting into, and the basically and the response, right? So like the response that we are getting. So here, this body, we have to actually code a little bit, curly bracket. In the quotes, we need to put the column code. So to do that, I'm going to go back into Creatio. Let me open my page design, my Freedom UI Designer, so I can get the codes of my fields. You can do it from Object Designer, so it's not just from here, but full name. As you can see, my code is USR name, so that's exactly how I need to enter it here. USR column, and then what we enter is in quotes as well. And that's basically going to be coming from our form. So where do we get this? If it's a simple field, if it's a text field, if it's a date field, that data, if it's, again, a number of some sort, if it's a number, that data can go straight into Creatio without any changes to it. So click here. As you can see, here's your name. And let's stretch this out. Next field. Oh, by the way, before I forget, let's close the bracket. So next, and you have to do this field by field. Yes, if you have a larger form, I have to say it might be a quite intense process just to enter everything, right? Field by field. So if you have 100 fields in your form, you will have to enter them field by field. So this is email. You can even kind of like copy paste this to make it a little bit faster. Birthday. As I said, I'm not a developer, so here my expertise are limited in that regard, but nonetheless, I can work with this. Do I have my birthday? Here's the birthday. Okay, and let me double check my form. Birthday. So the last thing, and this is what I wanted to show you, is the most complicated field to work with because we have to change this to a format again that Creatio can work with. This is a lookup, right? If I go into my form here, this is data source lookup. So it's a drop down. And again, in order for this to be processed correctly, I need to send an ID. So I can't send just the words like other, social media, referral, or anything like that. I have to send the ID of this value in Creatio. Obviously, I could send this word in, maybe build a process that will find the value and insert it correctly, but I have to say it's better to do it on the form side to send the correct already message in information into Creatio and not worry about basically building these a bunch of extra processes. There will be enough processes to go around. So how do we do this? The last field, what we'll need to do is we'll need to convert it. Before we can send in a webhook, we will need to convert it. And for this, we are going to use an action called compose. So that will allow us to transfer this data, transform this data. So I'm going to add a action before, and we're going to finish building this body as well. So we're not fully done. So we're going to search for compose. Here it is, data operation compose. And in here, we are going to basically work with the functions. The function that we need, and we're going to search, is called replace. Replace one text value that basically the user sees in the form with the value that we need to send in the webhook. So user is done. He's filled in the form. They don't see this action. This action happens after the form has been submitted. Replace. Then we need to say replace what? Dynamic content and how did you hear about us? So replace those values. And depending how many values you have to replace each value one by one. So this process again gets a little tedious, but has to be done. So we put a comma, single quotes, and then comma again in single quotes. So to replace one value, first you put the value that's exactly like it is in the form, and then you insert the ID. For example, my value is industry event, so I copy it exactly from the form, exactly the way it is. Here it is. And let me make this a little bit bigger. And in the second single quote, I'm going to put the ID of this lookup. So to do that, I'm going to go find my lookup. My lookup is customer registration source. I already prepared this to, as you can see, include IDs. So this is my industry event, copy, paste. Now, in order to do another replace, basically another replace, we move the cursor here, go back to the function, replace. Again. Oh, sorry. We remove this. If you get this bracket, it has to say replace, then replace. It's still the same body here. It's like we don't have to insert the body, but you put the comma here. Again, single bracket, comma, another single bracket, close. So, and we're going to go back and do this for all four values. Referral. See if I have a space. So let me fix my form. I think I have a space here. Yeah. Here, then the ID. So let me quickly again go through all these values. Replace. Comma, single, double, close, one. So I just did four values, just not to make this too intense on just kind of like replacing small things with IDs. So Here it is. And, or you can basically, don't have to reselect this replace. Here we can just type this, maybe a little bit easier. And the last value is other. Here it is. ID other. So then make sure to click add. Otherwise, it doesn't add this nice little formula that we have wrote. Okay, you can retitle this element to be something else. Okay, let's go back to our form setup of our webhook. And let's add one more. Let me double check it. For some reason it tells me that it's invalid. So let me see if I'm matching my format correctly. As I said, I'm not a developer, so oh, small thing that you're probably noticing and laughing at me a little bit there if you're a developer, that I forgot the commas. Oh, it's not what I wanted to do. It's not the birthday, right? We need the last field, which is the source. Here it is, source. And the value for the source will come from the compose, from the output of the compose. Again, compose outputs. So because it will replace whatever the text with the ID. Last but not least, you have to enter your entity name. And the end, basically first, the title, that's called entity name. This part is very important to match because again, it matches to the existing object. And what I'll need to find is the code of my object. So let me quickly do that. We're almost done. So that's pretty much the last part that I'll need to do. So let me find the code. Customer registration. Here is my object. It's a little long. So customer registration. Here it is. Now, once we have this subscribe body designed, again, in the way that's supposed to be and Creatio can understand, we need to go into the advanced settings and we need to change subscribe headers. Again, if the body is fine, but it doesn't know its content type application JSON, again, this is something that we kind of have to just copy paste subscriber header here. It doesn't see this format correctly. So we're just modifying it to be exactly how Creatio can work with it. Content type, application JSON. Let's save. The easiest thing to do is you can run a test here for Microsoft Form, but what I found, it's a lot easier to just simply fill out your form and see what happens there. So let's go ahead and do this. This is my, let me refresh this because I changed the referral a little bit. So enter the name, Olivia Smith. Again, some information here. Enter the birthday, so we can find a different direction. Let's say Lydia was born in July, and let's say that she came from the industry event. Submit. So after you have done this, you can basically track the your flow. Again, by default, it's enabled. As you can see, my 5 seconds ago, I got my first trigger. So it's time to go back into Creatio, because by this point, it should be there in the webhooks section. Here, this is the new one. And yes, it says webhook source Landingi, just accepted. But here is Olivia, all the information. ooh, I might have made a mistake on the source. I am looking this right now at the code, so that column might not transfer perfectly. So something again, while testing, I can discover and see. So let me find my application. And by this time, here is Olivia. Here it is, birthday. The source, as you can see, is not transferring because I did not give it the right column. So let me quickly fix that. And we are going to do a second test. So here I just have a double prefix. I was copying things. Okay, save. Now the output should work. Okay, it's saving. Let's wait for the confirmation message. Okay, submit another response. There it is. And industry event. Let's try this one. Okay, and just quickly in all apps, let me search for webhooks. There it is. New one should be good. And let me go to customer registration form. Here it is. Tom is appearing. Still having trouble with the source. So let me take a look at my form. Okay. Okay, this is a very silly mistake. So I have the industry event twice without the basically the ID, and that's why it's having trouble. Okay, so let me go back to lookups, and I keep choosing the same one. So that's where my kind of issue comes from. Industry event. I guess I did not copy it correctly. So let's rectify my mistake. Industry event. Okay, that looks good. Update, and save. Just to experiment, I'm actually going to choose, I think, another one. Let me double check. Everything else does seem to have IDs. Okay. Sometimes, as I said, it happens. Okay. So maybe faster. Okay, I'm just going to choose social media since industry event is not really my friend at this point. Okay. So let's go to webhooks. New one is received. Good. Again, it takes a minute. Like every minute, a process runs in Creatio, updating, basically checking for new webhooks that came in. And once those webhooks are in, so what happens is it gets processed. Done. Customer registration form. Here it is. Finally, we have the social media. Again, small things like that do impact how our form comes in. So a couple of tests might be necessary, but we're done. Okay, so this is it with Microsoft Forms. My goal was to show you a couple of things to pay attention to if you're working with a non-connector, basically service that you're trying to get data from. And as you can see, you can indeed save into any really entity in Creatio. It doesn't have to be just a form submit, which we showed in earlier examples.
All right, and that was all from us from today. Thank you very much for watching our Tech Hour, and we hope you enjoyed. Any questions that you left in our comments, our team try to answer. And if you are watching a recording, you can leave us a comment with any feedback or any question, and we will also answer it. So once again, thank you very much and hope to see you soon.
Thank you, guys. See you soon. Bye.
Bye bye.
Yay.